Hello, welcome back. I'm John. So I've got 5 books to share with you today. They're all fiction. I've split this into 2 parts. There's a fiction part and a nonfiction part, and I'm not sure in what order I'm going to post them. I'm not sure how far apart I'm going to post them. So this is what I've been reading for the past couple of weeks. I'm kind of playing catch up here, so forgive me. Um, I'm just going to dive right into it. So the first book I read was At Bertram's Hotel by Agatha Christie. This is a Miss Marple mystery, and it was okay, right? I'll be honest and say that I haven't really enjoyed the Miss Marple books as much as some of Christie's other books, and I'm not really sure why that is, but Miss Marple doesn't always sit right with me. And so in this one, she is sent on vacation. Her nephew and his wife asked where she'd like to go on vacation. They want to do something nice for her. She wants to go stay at Bertram's Hotel in London, which is this Edwardian throwback where they have wood burning in the fireplaces. They have all these old style foods made the right way and the old style furniture, and it's all just this, 50-year throwback. This was from the 60s. And Miss Marple had stayed there when she was young in the Edwardian times. And at the same time, there is a adventurer staying there. This lady who is known for exciting living, adventuring, going places, flying airplanes, going out with lots of interesting men and things like that. And she doesn't really seem to belong there at this hotel. It's not her kind of place. And there is a retired colonel who shows up with his, um, he's the guardian of this young woman who is, I can't remember exactly how old she is. I want to say that at that time, like the age of majority, whatever, the coming into an inheritance age was like 21 in Britain. I'm not 100% on that, on when those changed. So she's been away at school. She is the daughter of this adventurer lady who her father had died, left her this money, and her mother doesn't want anything to do with her. And it's not because she dislikes her or anything, she's just not the mothering type, and so they don't know each other. They know of each other, but they don't actually know each other. They've never really met after, whenever her father died and the family broke up. So that's a little bit odd. And then at the same time, there is this gang that is committing these heists across Europe and Britain and Ireland. And there's an inspector who is trying to figure out how this is happening. And so while Miss Marple is staying there, there is I think he was a canon in the Catholic Church, comes in there, and everything about his story, he's trying to get there. He's staying at Bertram's. He's going to Geneva for a conference. He's a scholar. And he gets there, his plane ticket is wrong, so he comes back to the hotel and somebody hits him over the head. And he wakes up far away in a village with some lady taking care of him. And Christie kind of talks about her in some unflattering ways because she's lower class. Christie was a snob. I mean, that's just the truth. Agatha Christie was an upper class snob. So anyway, we have this heist ring going on. We have people using disguises to show that there are other people committing these heists. We have the adventuress, her daughter, and an Italian race car driver is thrown into that mix where both the mother and the daughter have something to do with him. And so the daughter stands to come into this big inheritance. And basically the idea, I think, is that if the daughter dies, the money goes to the mother. So one day when the daughter is out in the London fog, somebody shoots at her but kills the doorman, and the mother had known the doorman also when she was younger. And there's this whole kind of intricate plot going on. And this one doesn't have a happy ending, and this one, um, it's a little bit over. It's a little bit overblown or something. There's a lot going on. There's maybe too much going on, and we're not really told what's going on. And Miss Marple, of course, is just sitting there. She sits here, she sits there, she overhears this, she overhears that, she sees this and sees that. And overall, it was kind of unsatisfying to me. Christie's later books are, in my experience, kind of unsatisfying in that way. And the Miss Marple books, other than Murder at the Vicarage, have been kind of unsatisfying to me. I think it's maybe because Miss Marple takes a side role, really. She's a side character in her own book, her own series, which is a little bit odd. And I mean, overall, it was pretty good. It was, Christie wrote really well. She was really good at evoking atmosphere and that sort of thing. But I just don't care for her later books. And Agatha Christie being a snob is kind of hard to deal with. But I liked how she was able to take Bertram's Hotel, this Edwardian relic that she clearly admired and longed for herself, and turn it into this den of sin, I guess. To turn that on its head and say, well, the facade is beautiful, but it's rotten at its core. So that was really interesting. And after that, I read Laurie R. King's A Monstrous Regiment of Women. So this is Sherlock Holmes pastiche, and it centers around a young woman named Mary Russell, who in the previous book, the first book, The Beekeeper's Apprentice, her parents die in a wreck. She's almost killed, so she's sent to Britain to live with her aunt, and she lives down the road from Sherlock Holmes. They meet, she becomes his apprentice, and they go on adventures together. And in the course of the books, they become more than friends. And so in the second one, she's coming into her inheritance. It's 1920, going over New Year's into 1921. She goes to London to talk with Holmes, and he figures out very quickly that she's there to ask him to marry her, and that makes her really mad. They get in an argument. She takes off into the seedier side of London, and she comes across one of her friends that she went to Oxford with, who is doing charity work for I think it's called the New Temple of God, which is led by a lady named Marjorie Child. And it's like a feminist church, basically, where Marjorie Child is talking about how to, she has her own interpretations of the Bible, and she is trying to better the lives of women. So that's good. But Mary Russell is a little bit suspicious of this because the people in this temple fawn over Marjorie Child and treat her like a saint, and they gather at her feet and give her flowers and listen to all her words, and there is clearly a lot of money involved in this. And so Mary Russell thinks that maybe she's a charlatan and is just doing this for the money, and her friend Veronica tells her that some of the members of this inner circle have been dying, and Mary Russell finds that very suspicious. So she decides to find out what's going on with this church and with Marjorie Child, and she herself becomes a target. And we're not really told who's doing it, and we're kept throughout the book wondering, is it Marjorie Child? Is it somebody else? Is it, what's going on here? And I'll be honest with you and tell you that I figured out who was doing it in about the first third of the book. And I kind of felt like what was an interesting plot became somewhat mundane in the end. And I felt like the ending was kind of rushed. I felt like the relationship between Holmes and Mary was rushed. I'm not going to tell you what happens or anything like that, but it just didn't seem to come to an organic conclusion, I don't think. But it was an interesting book. It's very well written. There were just aspects of it that didn't work out for me personally, but it was pretty good. So that is A Monstrous Regiment of Women by Laurie R. King. After that, I read Walter Mosley's Devil in a Blue Dress. This is an E.Z. Rawlins mystery, and E.Z. Rawlins is a veteran of World War II. He lives in, I think he lives in Watts in Los Angeles, and he's just lost his job. And he's sitting drinking at a bar, and a white man comes into the bar, and right away he gets a bad feeling about this guy. And the bartender tells him, this is Mr. Albright. Mr. Albright is looking for someone to do some work for him. I know you need some money, so you two get together. Mr. Albright hires E.Z. to go places that Albright really would stand out in. So Albright hires Rawlins to track down a white woman named Daphne Monet who likes to hang out in black clubs, and particularly hangs out with a man named Frank Green, who is kind of a all-around criminal, burglar, robber. He does heists, he smuggles, and he wants Rawlins to find Daphne Monet because there is a rich white guy who runs some kind of corporation who wants to track her down because they've been in a relationship, and Daphne has basically left him in the dust. So he wants Albright to track down Daphne Monet, to bring her back so they can have a conversation, and Albright hires E.Z. Rawlins to go find her. And it's a good book. It's well written, but there were aspects of it that were difficult to follow. People start to get killed. People who knew Daphne start to die, get murdered, and it's a little bit hard to follow why and what's going on. And there is a seedy, disgusting, pervert politician thrown into this mix who seems kind of out of place in the story overall. How Daphne Monet is in the seedier side of Los Angeles is not really fully explored. So why she's friends with these people, we're not really told that, except that she's trying to climb the social ladder, basically. But I don't think that comes across very well in the story itself. So E.Z. gets deeper and deeper into this, and the police start to suspect that he's the one committing these murders. And at the same time, Albright is becoming more violent towards E.Z. And I like Walter Mosley's writing. I like the E.Z. Rawlins mysteries. But the ones I've read 3 now, and I've read them backwards. So I read White Butterfly, then I read Death, and now Devil in a Blue Dress. But they all kind of seem to follow the same formula. And one of the things that's irritating about it is that every woman in the book wants to have sex with E.Z. Rollins, like every single one, and they almost always do. And I don't know, that doesn't always work well in the plots. It doesn't always make sense. It sometimes comes out of the blue, like it does in this book. And yeah, but it was good, and I enjoyed it. His friend Mouse comes in. Mouse is kind of like a psychopath who does whatever suits him in the moment. Maybe he's a sociopath, I don't know. And Mouse is a really interesting character because he only has morals in regards to what works for him in the moment. So he will be a lot of fun to hang out with, and in the next second he is homicidal, and no one is really safe around Mouse. I thought that was really good. So this is, I don't know, I tend to think that I liked White Butterfly best of all, and I think I liked this book a little bit more than I liked A Red Death. I don't know, the E.Z. Rollins series is pretty good. So that is Devil in a Blue Dress by Walter Mosley. So after that I read Able Team. Which one is this? Number 18, Tech War by Dick Stivers, which is a house name, and the real writer was, let's see, G.H. Frost. So this is from 1985. This is kind of a strange book. I like that cover though. And so Able Team is like this secret U.S. government squad who goes out and solves problems under the radar, off the record for the government. There is some kind of secret computer laser that has been stolen in, I think, in the US and is being taken to Sri Lanka to be put on a ship and sent to Russia. And Able Team is sent to Sri Lanka. And at the same time, there's a young guy there who was a tour guide. Now he's in the army. And his colonel or major, I can't remember, tells him basically, all right, you have to go to the airport and meet these 3 Americans and show them around. So he goes and meets Able Team thinking that he is supposed to be a tour guide, and he's kind of hapless, I guess, because throughout this whole book, he's trying to show them around, trying to be a tour guide, taking them to these spots, and they're like, look, man, we're here on a mission, like we're here on a secret mission. And even as things get violent, like there's a North Korean squad sent to kill Able Team, the guy in question, their tour guide, is still behaving like a tour guide. So they'll get in like a gunfights, and he'll be like, "Oh, I know all the good restaurants over here," and it's kind of weird. Which I want to, they're not like talking down about anybody from Sri Lanka. It's just that this guy is under the impression that he's supposed to be a tour guide, and he just can't get it through his head that they are government agents, even as these things go on. He does, over maybe in the last third of the book or so, start to grasp what's going on. And so there's a lot of violence. It's not like overblown violence or anything like that. It's not lingered on or anything. But there are people in the Sri Lankan government who are allied with the Russians, and there's a industrialist there who is actually a KGB agent who is undercover, and they're working together to stop Able Team. And meanwhile, this laser is coming in on a ship, so once Able Team is able to overcome this North Korean squad, they go out and hire a bunch of prisoners from the prison and give them machetes and send them out to attack. And it's, ridiculous, but it's an action adventure story. It's not supposed to be deep or anything like that. It's not supposed to be great literature. It's just an adventure story. Yeah, I felt the ending was a little too abrupt. honestly. Like, it was this huge build-up, and then the ending was over just like that. So I didn't really care for that. It felt like we had led up to this big climax, and then the big climax didn't really happen. But anyway, I enjoyed it. So that's Able Team Take War from 1985. And I've got one more book, and it is from the Bernie Rodenbach series by Lawrence Block. It's The Burglar Who Liked to Quote Kipling. So Bernie Rodenbach is like a burglar who is trying to reform, sort of. So he's bought a bookstore in New York City, and he still goes out and steals things every now and then when he needs to pay the bills. And a man comes into the shop, talks to him about Rudyard Kipling, and they get to talking about how Kipling and H. Rider Haggard became friends, and Kipling published a limited edition series of a poetry book he had written and inscribed it personally to H. Rider Haggard. And all the other copies were destroyed by Kipling. And so the guy he's talking to knows where this book is. It's in a mansion in one of the, I think on Long Island. And so he hires Bernie Rodenbach to go out and steal this book and bring it back. And Bernie goes out. He goes through this big mansion. He looks at all their expensive jewelry and their mink coats and all their, these trinkets they have bought to advertise their wealth to people who come over. And he steals the book. And when he goes to meet up with the man who had employed him, he goes to an apartment, and there is a woman in the apartment, and she drugs him. And when he wakes up, she is dead, and there's a gun in his hand. And he knows he didn't kill her. But somebody, and I forgot to mention, before he had gone to this place, a Sikh had come into his shop and robbed him, had tried to take the book, and Bernie had given him the wrong book. And so he's not sure who killed this woman. And the book is him trying to figure out who killed this lady, who set him up, why she drugged him, and what's going on. And he becomes a fugitive because they had left his wallet in a place in this apartment. And so the police are after him, and he has to enlist his friend Carolyn Kaiser. He stays with her in her tiny New York apartment. She's a dog groomer. And yeah, it was just entertaining. It's entertaining to see New York of the 70s and how Bernie and Carolyn go about figuring out this mystery and coming down to the big showdown at the end where he gets all these people together and he does his kind of Poirot, you're the one who did it. And that was pretty good. So I enjoyed that. I like Bernie Rodenbach. I like the series. And I want to read more of them. So that is The Burglar Who Liked to Quote Kipling by Lawrence Block. So that brings us to the end of the video. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.